The night they put the alpha on the block, the whole city came to watch him break. Chains bit into his wrists and throat, silver burning every time he moved. He was too big for the auction pillar, too wild for the iron muzzle clamped over his jaw, too proud to look away, even with blood drying in rivers down his chest. "Lot 13, the auctioneer shouted. "One rogue alpha captured alive, cursed, extremely dangerous, opening at 10 gold. The crowd roared, some spat, some raised their phones. They wanted a show. At the very back, a girl in a threadbare coat counted the coins in her shaking hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, all she had. Barely enough for bread, never mind a monster's life. She should have walked away. Instead, when the warden dragged a silver knife across the alpha's chest and his blood hissed against the blade, when those golden eyes finally flinched, not from pain, but humiliation, she heard herself scream, "Stop! I'll pay what you want. I'll pay in blood." Every head turned. No one understood, except the alpha on the block, who went terrifyingly still, because only one kind of blood could buy him out of an auction like this, and only one kind of bond would form if she dared to spill it. Before we see what happens when a broke girl tells with her own blood to buy an alpha's freedom. If you love dark werewolf auctions, cursed alphas, and human girls making stupid, life-changing sacrifices, hit subscribe, tap like, and tell me in the comments. Would you pay with your last money or your last blood to save a stranger? Now let's go back to the stadium, where a girl is about to buy an alpha and lose her soul. By law, wolves weren't supposed to exist. The council called them ferals and mutations. They said the bite infected people, that packs were cults, that alphas were nothing but gang leaders with claws. The official story was simple. They were dangerous. They were contained. And if you saw one in chains, you should be grateful. Nova Reyes had grown up believing most of that. She'd watched raids on the news, soldiers dragging half-shifted bodies out of smoke. Her mother would turn the TV off and whisper, "Don't look too closely, baby. Don't listen too closely either. Just be normal. Just survive." Being normal hadn't saved them. Sickness took her mother. Debt took their house. The state took everything else. At 22, Nova had a part-time job at a laundromat, a crumbling studio above a grocery store, and a heart that refused to stop caring. She fixed neighbors' phones for free. She slipped cash into Mrs. Ramos's mailbox on pension day. She skipped meals to send tiny transfers toward old hospital till. It was exhausting. Then the message hit every screen in the city. Public auction. 1 alpha captured. All citizens welcome. Nova meant to ignore it, until she made the mistake of opening the stream. Chains, blood. A man on a stone block, stripped to the waist. An iron muzzle, golden eyes. Lot 13 Riven, rogue alpha. Threat level, extreme. Something in her bones jolted. She didn't know him. She wasn't sure wolves were even real. But by the time she realized her feet had carried her onto the tram, the city was already flowing toward the old stadium the council used for public justice. Normal people came for the spectacle. Nova came because something inside her felt like it was finally waking up. The stadium had once hosted concerts. Now, rusted railings and cracked seats circled a stone platform under harsh white lights. Drones whirred overhead. The smell of greased metal, Sweat and hot electronics soaked the air. Nova slipped into the back row and tried to disappear into her coat. On the platform, the Alpha stood shackled to an iron ring, head bowed. Silver links wrapped his wrists, throat, and ankles. The muzzle hid half his face, but nothing could hide the brutal lines of him. Muscle layered over old scars, fresh cuts burning against his skin. He looked like every warning the news had ever screamed. He also looked too calm. "Citizens of Northgate," boomed the announcer. "Welcome!" Warden Sarah, sharp suit, sharper smile, stalked the stage, mic in hand, badge flashing Lycan's control division. "This creature led a pack of ferals and does against enforcement officers," Sarah said. "He is responsible for deaths, damage, and insubordination. Today, you will help decide his fate." The crowd jeered. Nova's stomach rolled. "As you know, we have two options. Immediate extermination." Sarah paused for effect. "EU private purchase for labor and research." Hands shot up, credit chips glittering. "But," Sarah added, eyes glinting, "there is a third clause. A relic of old wolf law." He gestured grandly. Clause 13, the blood accord. If a citizen offers blood of equal value, the council must accept. The wolf's life and his bond belong to the buyer. The word bond slid through the stadium like oil. Nova had heard whispers. Blood deals. Wolves who'd do anything for the human who freed them. She'd always thought it was propaganda. On the block, the Alpha finally moved. His head lifted. Chains creaked as he looked out over the sea of faces. When his gaze found Nova, it felt like she'd stepped into a spotlight. Her breath stuttered. For a heartbeat, the jeers faded. All she heard was her own pulse in her ears and the soft hiss of silver against skin every time he breathed. "Starting bid," Sarah shouted. 10 gold, 15 a 20. Numbers climbed. Nova looked at the scoreboard and nearly choked. Her whole life savings wouldn't buy a single bid. "Walk away," she told herself. She turned. "Hold," Sarah said. He drew a silver knife and pushed it against the Alpha's chest. "Let them see what they're buying." He sliced. Blood welled up, dark and thick. It hit the blade with a hiss, smoke curling. The Alpha's muscles jumped. He didn't make a sound. The crowd roared. Something inside Nova snapped. The laughter, the cameras, the way everyone leaned in like this was entertainment while a living being was carved up and sold. Her fingers found the tiny folding knife in her pocket, a habit from walking home late. Her hand shook. She didn't have gold. She had something else. "Stop!" she yelled. Her voice cut to tone tucked across the stadium like broken glass. The noise faltered. Drones pivoted toward her. The big screen flickered, zooming in until her own face stared back at her. Messy hair, cheap coat, eyes too bright. Sarah's smile froze. "Yes, citizen in the nosebleeds," he drawled. "You said clause 13 still stands." Nova said, voice trembling, "Blood flies." Sarah's eyes narrowed. "In theory." "Do you happen to have royal veins, little one? A coven priest? A council heir hiding in that coat?" "No," she said, "just mine." Laughter rolled through the stands. "Sit down!" someone shouted. You're embarrassing yourself. Heat burned Nova's cheeks. She should have. Instead, she flipped the knife open under her sleeve. Her pulse thundered. Don't, Reason begged. She pressed the blade to her palm and dragged. Pain flared. Blood rushed out, hotter than it should have been, thicker, sparkling faintly as it hit the air. The drone above her jerked, its red light flickering. On the screens, her blood dripped in slow motion, darker than normal. The air around her crackled. The Alpha's head snapped in her direction hard enough to wrench the chains. He sniffed the air. His eyes widened behind the muzzle. Magic, Nova thought dimly. Real magic. Stop her! Seraso snarled, gesturing to the nearest guards. They took a step and then stumbled, flinching as Nova's blood spattered the rail between them and sizzled against the metal, leaving black scorch marks. The entire stadium went quiet. Nova raised her bleeding hand. I offer my last blood, she said, voice raw. His life for mine. That's what the accord says, doesn't it? Sarah's face hardened. Offer rejected. He snapped. Accord revoked. Security. Speakers screeched. A different voice cut in, metallic and cold. Clause 13 detected. Active magic verified. Blood offer accepted. Contract locked. Every screen blazed with the same words. Blood accord. 13. Bond initiated. The stadium gasped. The moment the system confirmed, something punched through Nova's chest. Not physically, but like a hook sinking into her ribs and yanking. On the block, the Alpha jerked. For the first time, a sound tore from his throat. It wasn't a word. It was a snarl, strangled by the muzzle. Half rage and half shock. He could feel it too. Lot 13, Sarah said through clenched teeth. Sold. He lifted his gaze to Nova, eyes full of venom. To the girl with the cursed blood. Guards surged toward the Alpha, unlocking chains, fumbling with the muzzle. Silver hissed as it peeled off his skin. He ripped free of the last restraint and staggered, catching himself before he fell. Breath crashed into his lungs. His shoulders rose and fell. Then he looked up. Across the stadium, their eyes met. He smiled. Not gentle. Hungry. Mine. Something inside Nova whispered back, uninvited. Her bleeding palm burned. It was the first sign she hadn't just bought his life. She'd given him a direct line to her soul. They didn't let her walk out. The minute the auction ended, security closed in. Citizen Nova Reyes, a guard barked, visor reflecting her own pale face back at her. She froze. How do you... He tapped his ear. Council Tech knows everything. Come with us. Hands closed around her arms, firm but not cruel, steering her away from the crowd. Her palm throbbed, blood still oozing between her fingers. Every step away from the Alpha made the hook in her chest pull. They took her through concrete corridors that smelled like bleach and old beer, down to a white room with too many cameras. A medic grabbed her hand with gloved fingers and hissed when he saw the wound. What did you do? He muttered. You didn't just cut, you activated something. He swabbed the blood, the cotton smoked. He dropped it with a curse. Your blood fried the scanner, he said, almost accusing. Even witches don't do that. I'm not a witch, Nova snapped. I fix washing machines. The door opened with a hiss. Warden Sarah stepped in, smile gone. "Miss Reyes," he said, "you've made my day very complicated." She glared. "Sorry your public torture show got interrupted." He pulled out a chair and sat across from her like this was a job interview. "You invoked a binding clause with active magic," he said. "We have to honor it. That means the Alpha's life is now tied to yours. Legally, he's your property. Practically, he's your problem." Nova flinched at the word property. "I didn't buy a pet," she said. "I stopped you from killing someone." "Nice sentiment," Sarah said. "Here's the part you missed. Clause 13 isn't just about ownership. It's about shared liability. His actions reflect on you. His injuries reflect on you. If he kills, you share the charge. If he dies..." He smiled thinly. "You die with him." Cold slid through her. "I didn't agree to that," she whispered. "You agreed when you cut," he said. "The Accord doesn't care if you read the fine print." He slid a tablet toward her. Her name glowed on the screens, linked to a file labeled Set 13, Riven. At the bottom, a status bar pulsed. Bond, active. Nova stared until the words blurred. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now," Sarah said, "we let you meet your investment." He stood, nodded to someone behind the mirrored glass, and the second door hissed open. Riven filled the doorway. He was still bare-chested, bandages wrapped tight around his ribs. The silver collar at his throat glowed faintly, a cable running from it to the ceiling. Up close, he looked even more dangerous, and far too human. His gaze swept the room once, dismissed Sarah, dismissed the medic, and locked onto Nova. The hook in her chest yanked hard. The room dimmed around the edges. "Nova," he said, like he was testing the sound. Her knees went weak. "You know my name?" she said. He tilted his head, nostrils flaring. "I tasted it," he said quietly. "On your blood." The guard stiffened. Sarah watched, fascinated. Riven took one measured step forward until the collar cable pulled taut. "Stop," Sarah warned. "You move past the limit, you burn." Riven ignored him. He reached out anyway. Nova's instinct screamed to back up. She stayed. His fingers brushed her bandaged palm. Heat shot through her from the point of contact, scorching up her arm into her chest. For a second, she saw what he saw. Herself, in ratty sneakers and a cheap coat, bleeding in the stands like an idiot. His wolf surged toward her, a dark shape behind his eyes, teeth bared. "Mate." Something growled inside both of them. Nova gasped. Riven flinched like he'd been punched. "Enough!" Sarah snapped. He tapped a device. The collar around Riven's throat flared bright. His back arched, a strangled sound ripping from him as electricity slammed through his spine. Nova screamed. Pain tore through her chest at the same time, echoing his. Her legs buckled. She hit the floor, clutching her ribs. "Stop!" she gasped. "You're hurting him." "And you," Sarah observed calmly. "Fascinating." He let the collar dim. Riven collapsed to one knee, panting. Nova pushed herself up, vision swimming, anger clawing through the pain. "You said shared liability," she rasped. "If you torture him, you're hitting me too." Sarah shrugged. We're gathering data. Don't be dramatic. She stared at him, hate boiling in her stomach. Riven's hand closed around her ankle. Enough, he ground out, forcing himself upright. You want your data, Warden? Here's some. Hurt her again and see how cooperative I stay. Sarah's smile cooled. You're in no position to threaten me, Wolf. Riven's eyes burned gold. Reconnect the collar, he said. Test how much voltage it takes to put me down. But remember, every time you shock her, the bond tightens. Every time you push, we push back. Keep going, and you might make something you can't control. Silence. Sarah studied them both. Then he chuckled. Fine, he said. For now, minimal shocks. Twice weekly monitored visits. We'll see how long you stay this charming. He nodded to the guards. They dragged Riven back toward the door. Or he dug his heels in long enough to look over his shoulder. Nova, he said, you shouldn't have done it. She swallowed. Too late. His mouth twisted in something pained and proud all at once. Then we survive it together, he said. The door slammed between them. The hook in her chest yanked hard. She realized this wasn't some romantic fairy bond. It was a chain both of them wore. Normal life didn't fit anymore. Nova tried. She went back to the laundromat. She sorted clothes, smoothed wrinkled shirts, fixed coin slot jams. She told her boss she'd cut her hand on a pipe. But every time a siren wailed, every time the news mentioned lichen control, the bond tugged. She could feel Riven at the edge of her awareness, like a storm humming just beyond the horizon. The first time they shocked him again, she was midway through loading a machine. Pain detonated in her chest with no warning. She doubled over, gasping. Her heart hammered so hard, she thought it might break through her ribs. Every nerve lit up with burning static. Nova, door, her boss shouted. You okay? She nodded blindly, teeth clenched. The pain ebbed after a few seconds, leaving her shaking and sweaty. She knew exactly what had happened. They were using the collar on him again. When she confronted Sarah at the next visit, he didn't bother denying it. Boy, we warned you, he said. His conditioning is still in place. He's a weapon. It's our job to keep him pointed the right way. You're using me as a battery, she snapped. You know it hurts me too. Your vitals recover, he said. Each time a little faster. That's valuable data. Think bigger, Miss Reyes. You and Riven might be the key to controlling his entire species. Control isn't peace, she said. It's slavery. Sarah tired of arguing. He let her into Riven's cell. Riven's knuckles were split where he'd punched the wall. His collar sat dark around his throat. When he saw her, some of the tension eased. You felt it, he said. You felt me almost throw up in a laundromat. She shot back. Yeah. He grimaced. I'm sorry. I thought I could take more without it bleeding through. Their cruelty isn't your apology to make, she muttered. She sat beside him on the narrow bunk. The cell was small, but his presence filled it. Heat, muscle. The quiet power of something that refused to break. Tell me about before, she said. Your pack. He watched her for a moment. Why? He asked. Because they keep telling me you're a monster, she said. I'd like your version. A corner of his mouth twitched. I was Alpha of the Ashen Crest, he said. We had a territory in the northern ranges. We cut deals with covens and human syndicates. For every raid, the news showed you There were 10 we stopped. Rogue packs, feral outbreaks. We thought if we made ourselves useful, the council would leave us alone. They didn't, she guessed. They called us a private militia. He said, too independent, too strong. They poisoned our wells with a new silver compound. Half my wolves dropped before we knew we were under attack. His jaw tightened. I had a choice, he said. Fight and watch them pick my pack off one by one. Or surrender and trust they'd honor their word to rehome them in controlled sanctuaries. Nova's stomach knotted. You chose them. I always did, he said quietly, even when it cost me more than it should have. He glanced down at their joined hands, thumb drawing absent circles over her pulse. Except you, he added. I didn't choose you. You chose me. She swallowed past the sudden tightness in her throat. Does it bother you, she asked, that you're tied to some nobody in a city you never wanted to see? He looked at her like she'd grown a second head. You think you're nobody, he said. I'm not a queen, she muttered. I fold socks for a living. He huffed a quiet laugh. In my world, he said, queens don't stand up in front of a stadium and bleed for chained alphas. That was all you. Heat crawled up her neck. Don't romanticize it, she said. I wasn't thinking. I was angry. Good, he said. We need your anger. On the way out that day, Sarah pulled her aside. We have a problem, he said. This bond is unstable. The readings are off the charts. If it keeps tightening, it might kill you both. Then stop shocking us, she snapped. He ignored that. There is one solution, he said. Curious if your wolf has told you yet. Nova's skin prickled. What solution? She asked. Completion, Sarah said. Under a blood moon, an incomplete bond like yours can either be broken or fully integrated. Integrated how? She demanded. His smile was slow and cruel. By letting his wolf take you, he said. By letting your magic take him. Two beings become one system, hybrid, strong enough to hold the load. Nova's stomach flipped. And if we don't, Wu asked, then the strain keeps building until something snaps, he said. Veins, nerves, hearts. Most pairs don't last. He leaned back. I'm giving you a chance to survive, he said. Break it or forge it. Either way, we learn. Nova left his office with her heart pounding. Revan was waiting in the visitation room. Even before she stepped through, the bond hummed. They told you, he said the second he saw her face. Yeah, she said. Blood moon, break, or become something else. I won't let them force you, he said. If you walk away now, maybe the bond will fade. Maybe. It won't, she cut in. We both feel it. He didn't argue. They want a weapon, Nova said. Something loyal, obedient. That's not us, he said. Her fingers found his. No, she said. But we might be something worse for them. Worse? He repeated. Free. She said, and angry. They took her on the night the moon turned red. Nova should have seen it coming. There were more guards than usual at her building. The elevator was out of order. A council car waited at the curb, engines idling. Mandatory evaluation, the officer lied her. Her bracelet snapped shut around her wrist before she finished arguing. By the time the transport doors opened again, city lights were gone. The ritual chamber was carved into a hillside, stone walls etched with old sigils, new tech wired in awkwardly. The air fizzed with power that made her teeth ache. Riven stood in the center of a circle of carved lines. No collar. No chains to the ceiling this time. Just heavy iron cuffs and a dozen rifles trained on his heart. His eyes found her immediately. "Nova," he bade, voice a rasp. "They shouldn't have brought you here." "They said we'd die if they didn't," she shot back. "Then we die," he said. "They don't get to turn you into their project." Sarah's voice floated down from a platform above. "Oh, but she already is," he said pleasantly. "You both are. Let's not waste the opportunity. Begin." Guards pushed Nova into the opposite side of the circle. The lines carved into the stone glowed faintly under her feet, reacting to her presence. "Knife," Sarah ordered. Someone pressed a blade into her palm. Nova's hand shook. "This is simple," Thora said. "Let the bond complete, and you may live as something new. Resist, and you might tear it out. You might survive, or you might not. Either way, we'll record everything." Riven lunged against his cuffs. "Don't do it," he snarled. "Don't give them what they want." Nova met his eyes. "I'm not doing it for them," she said. Her heart was a drum in her chest. "You told me once you surrendered for your pack," she said. "You chose them over yourself." "Yes," he snapped. "And look where it got us." "It got you alive," she said. "It gave me someone worth bleeding for." She looked at the knife, at her scarred palm, at the red moon pressing down through the skylight. "I'm tired of surviving in half measures," she said. "If this bond is going to end me, it'll be on our terms, not theirs." She sliced her palm open. Blood spilled. This time, she didn't just offer it. She poured it into the circle. The glyphs flared red. The world blew apart. Heat slammed up her arm, across her shoulders, into her spine. Her bones shuddered. The bond roared, ripping open every sealed door inside her. She dimly saw Riven throw his head back, a long, raw howl tearing from him as his own body convulsed. Energy surged between them like a live wire, looping through heart and vein and soul. The chamber, Sarah, the guards, all of it burned out to white. She stood in a place with no floor, no sky, just a river of blood flowing in the air. A choice. Something ancient whispered. Break. Bind. Burn. She saw flashes of two possible futures. Riven alone on the block, collar bright, eyes dull as Sarah bled him dry for data. Herself alone in her apartment, waking up screaming as the bond ripped itself apart inside her. And another, forest, pack, her hands lit with power. Riven's back against hers, enemies closing in, both of them laughing because they weren't afraid anymore. She reached instinctively for that one. "I accept him," she said to the darkness, "all of him, and whatever that makes me." The river rushed forward. It hit her like a tidal wave. Pain swallowed her whole. Her body broke and reformed around something wild. On the floor of the ritual chamber, her heart stuttered once, twice. Stopped. Machine screamed. Someone shouted, "She's crashing!" Riven roared, the cuffs shattered in his fists. He staggered to her side, half-shifted, bones cracking under his skin, fur ripping through in patches. He gathered her up, shaking her limp shoulders. "Nova!" He choked. "Nova, breathe." She didn't. The bond went silent. For one terrible heartbeat, he thought Sarah had been right, that the bond had burned her out and left him holding a shell. He tugged her closer and did the only thing his wolf understood. He bit. Not to hurt, to call. His teeth grazed the skin where her neck met her shoulder, just enough to break the surface. His blood met hers. The circle flared one last time. Nova's eyes flew open. She inhaled like she was drowning and had finally broken the surface. Color crashed back into the world. Her muscles felt like molten metal. Her hearing stretched too far. She could hear hearts pounding 3 rooms away. She could feel Riven's pulse under her fingers, perfectly in sync with hers. "Hey!" she rasped. He sagged, forehead pressing to hers. "Don't hey me," he said, voice shaking. "You died." "Just a little," she muttered. She became aware of the guards again, shouting, weapons being raised, Sarah screaming orders. Riven's hands tightened around her. "How do you feel?" he demanded. She blinked. The air tasted different, richer, layered. "I feel..." She flexed her fingers. Claws flickered at the tips and slid back. "Like, if they shoot at us, I'm going to be very offended." His laugh came out half wild, half relieved. "Good," he said. "Run with me?" "Always," she swabbed. They turned as one. The council had planned for a ritual. They had not planned for 2 fully bonded predators in a circle designed to amplify them. The first volley of bullets hit the air around Nova and Riven, and slid sideways, sparks dancing where her magic bent their path off course. "Down!" a guard screamed. Riven leapt, half wolf, half man, tearing into the nearest threat with terrifying efficiency. Nova raised her bleeding palm and pushed. Energy howled out of her, slamming into a second guard's chest and hurling him backward into the wall hard enough to crack stone. Sigils on the floor flickered, then blew, sending cracks racing through the lines. Above, Sarah watched from his platform, face pale. "Shut it down!" he yelled. "Gas them, now!" Canisters hissed from vents. Nova tasted the sharp chemical tang. Instinct screamed danger. Without thinking, she grabbed Riven's arm and dragged her bloody palm across the circle's outer edge. The blood flared, creating a thin, shimmering barrier around them. Gas rolled over it like fog against glass. Her head still spun, but she remained upright. Riven's eyes widened. "Clever witch," he rasped. "Scared witch," she corrected. Big difference. Alarms blared. More guards stormed the chamber. And then a howl answered from outside the hillside. Another. Another. Dozens. Riven's head snapped up. "My pack," he breathed. "Here?" Nova asked. "When the bond snapped fully, they felt it," he said. "Ashencrest doesn't leave an alpha in a council cage." The door at the far end of the chamber blew inward. Wolves poured through, huge, furious. Their eyes glowed in the blood-red light as they hit the line of guards like a tidal wave. Magic flashed. Gunfire cracked. Stone shattered. Chaos. Riven stepped in front of Nova anyway, instinctively shielding her even as she hurled pulses of blood-charged force past his shoulder, knocking weapons from hands. One of the wolves skidded to a stop beside them, shaking blood from his grey fur. "Alpha," he barked. "You look terrible." "Stone," Riven snarled, grabbing his scruff briefly. "You're late." Stone's gaze swung to Nova. "And this is the reason we're here," he said. "You owe us a lot of drinks, human." Nova bared her teeth, half human now. His ears flicked up. "I like her. Move." Riven snapped. "We're not done." They fought their way out. Not cleanly, not heroically, but like people who had something bigger than themselves to protect. By the time they reached the surface, smoke billowed from the hillside. The blood moon hung heavy overhead. Forest stretched in every direction, dark and deep. Nova staggered. Riven caught her, one arm braced around her shoulders. "You still with me?" he asked. "Define with," she panted. "If you mean conscious, barely. If you mean regretting this, no." He huffed out a breath that might have been a laugh. Wolves circled them, some shifting into human form, faces streaked with soot and blood. "We can't stay," Stone said. "They'll send drones, hunters, covens." "We go home," River said. "To the ranges, back to ground they've never fully mapped." He looked down at Nova. "You'll be safe there," he added. She snorted. "Safe stopped being an option the minute I yelled in that stadium." His eyes softened. "You had other options," he said quietly. "You could have let them kill me. You could have broken the bond. You could still walk away." "Walk where?" she demanded. "Back to washing socks? Back to pretending I don't feel the world humming under my skin?" She reached up and gripped the front of his torn shirt. "I chose you," she said. "I chose this. I'm not running from it, even if it gets you hunted," he asked. "We were already hunted," she said. "We just didn't know the names of the people holding the guns." He stared at her for a long, steady moment. Then he dropped to one knee. Not like a king before a subject, like a wolf offering his throat. The pack went silent. "Nova Reyes," he said, voice low but carrying. "Blood witch, bonded. The one who bought my life and gave me back my soul. I claim you as my mate in front of my pack." Heat rushed to her face. He wasn't asking politely. He was putting everything on the line in front of the only family he had. She swallowed. "I claim you too," she said, loud enough for the wolves and the red moon and whatever old gods were listening. "Not as property, not as some council asset, as mine." A murmur rolled through the trees. Somewhere far away, Serra crawled from the wreckage of his lab, coughing, eyes blazing with hate, as he watched grainy footage of wolves vanishing into the forest. "This isn't over," he rasped. "We'll find you. We'll collar you. Both of you." Nova felt the echo of his promise through the bond, like a distant itch. She looked up at the blood moon, at the man kneeling in front of her, at the pack waiting, breath held. She reached down and brushed her thumb over the faint mark his teeth had left at her neck. "Let them come," she said softly. Riven's lips curled into a slow, dangerous smile. "Careful, witch," he murmured. "You're starting to sound like an alpha." "Good," she said. "They should be afraid of both of us." He rose, cupped her face and kissed her. The bond flared, not burning now, but bright and fierce and whole. The pack howled. somewhere between the girl who had paid with her last blood in a stadium and the hybrid standing under the blood moon with a pack at her back. Nova stopped being nobody. She became exactly what the council had feared. A soul the Alpha had claimed. A witch who had claimed him back. And the spark of a war neither of them intended to lose. She had paid with her last blood to save the Alpha from the auction, but in the end, it was his surrendered soul and the fire they bound together under the blood moon that made the whole world theirs to burn or to heal, side by side.